Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Joe. This is the Joe Martino Show, and today we're going to talk about the truth that you probably actually know what you're doing as a parent. The stakes are so high that we often get afraid we have to do it perfectly, and then we let fear of mistakes paralyze us. Let's kick it off. This is the Joe Martino Show.
You're listening to the Joe Martino Show, a podcast dealing with all things emotional, relational, and human nature. Joe is a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan, specializing in relationship therapy. He is also the author of the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. All advice offered in this episode is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the show.
All right. Hello, my friends. Welcome. I hope that your day is going well wherever your day is. Before we get going, I need to address last week. The episode didn't go up. I'm not sure why. It was recorded. When I listen to the audio on my computer, it works, but when I try to listen to it through the SoundCloud, it does not work. And so I am working on that. You might have to just re-record that episode and put it up at a later date. All right, let's kick off today's episode. Hey, friends, welcome. Let's talk today about parents and parenting. One of the things that has struck me over the last few weeks, and you know, when I sit with people, it's often you will sit, especially if you do couples therapy, you will sit with them and you will watch the pain and the fear and the uncertainty go across their face. I just sat with someone this week, a couple, and as the wife was talking, the pain on the husband's face over what she was saying, and she wasn't saying it in a mean way. She was just speaking truth about what was going on in their lives. But the pain was so visceral on his face, I couldn't help but see it. And I've noticed this, you know, over the years with husbands, with wives, and with parents. And I've started to notice it as I'm talking to mostly dads, but even moms. You know, I had a friend, I went and got coffee with him just a few days ago. We were talking about his son and how he was navigating the transition from preteen to teen, from someone who saw girls as a little weird to, oh, he's got an interest in girls and multiple girls, and he wants to know if that's okay, and he's using my phone to text him, and he wants his own phone, and how do we navigate that? And here's the key phrase that I hear from dads and moms: I don't know what I'm doing. To which I almost always say, hold on, I actually do think you know what you're doing. I think you have a fear that you don't know what you're doing, and that isn't the same thing. And you know what? I get it. I remember distinctly when my first daughter was born. In fact, when all three of my daughters were born, I just disappeared for a couple hours after they were born. After I knew Erica was fine, after I knew that they were okay, I had to go, you know, I'm old enough to remember when you had to get pictures developed. They weren't all in your phone. And I had to go get them developed. And, you know, you go to the 1 hour Photoshop at the time, 1 hour development, which is probably actually about 2 hours, right? You drop it off. You go back about 90 minutes later, typically 2 hours later, and be developed. Well, I was actually going for 4 or 5 hours because the thing that kept running through my head is, how do I do this? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to raise children. I don't know how to raise girls. At the time, when my oldest was born, I had been a coach of boys for a while, so I felt like I had some idea of what to do with boys. But I had no idea what to do with girls. And then I did what I do, is I went and did research, and I went and read all the books, and I felt like I got a decent handle on that. And then 7 years after my youngest daughter was born, my wife is pregnant with a boy, and I go through the same thing. What do I do with a boy? How do I raise a boy? How do I raise him well? And the mantra in my head over and over again, I don't know what I'm doing. And so when I'm meeting with guys or women and they say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, I get it. I understand that. I remember distinctly telling my business associate at the time, when we knew that Joey was a boy, I was like, I'm terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing. And here's the thing that I've settled on. I just recently had someone ask me, well, how do you know what your belief system is? And essentially the answer is trial and error until you settle on something. But here's the thing that I've settled on when it comes to raising kids. Relationship wins. Relationship wins. Relationship wins. I promise you, relationship wins. And here's what I mean by that. You build the relationship. In thick or thin, you build a relationship. Now, I'm going to do an episode. In fact, it's already recorded and it's coming, about how I'm not arguing for permissive parenting. I run into a lot of people who only listen to my podcast, and as far as their interaction with me, and they often say to me, well, I'm doing what you're doing or what you're telling me to do, and it isn't working. And as we talk, I realize they're not actually doing what I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating for no consequences. I'm advocating for consequences that are right there in the moment, that are real, not artificial. I'm okay with a kid feeling bad about themselves for what they did for a short amount of time. I'm not okay shaming them, and there's a difference there. Because if I shame them, we lose the relationship. And I had a mentor tell me years ago, Dr. Bob Lehman, I've talked about him before. He was the head of my program for my counseling degree. I still stay in contact with him. But one of the things he said in a class one time was, parenting is like fishing. You have to maintain influence with your children, and you can't let the line break. If the line breaks, you lose influence. And so relationship wins. And here's the thing that struck me with both of the guys that I was talking to that are friends. But even as I've talked to parents, a lot of you do know what you're doing. The stakes are so high that you think you have to do it perfectly. And that isn't true. That's the lie. It's not that you don't know what you're doing. It's that the stakes are so high that you've convinced yourself you have to be the perfect parent. And that's not true. You can make mistakes. In fact, I'm convinced that kids don't really care a whole lot about mistakes if you make them right and don't repetitively do them. Right? Because that's human nature. If you love somebody, they're going to make mistakes. But if they make mistakes and they come back and they say, hey, I messed up, I was wrong, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? This is how I'm going to make it right. And then they act on that. Almost everyone forgives that. And certainly kids are okay with that. It's not the mistakes that I've made, right, that define me. We say that. We tell that to our kids. But then when it comes to parenting, we're so afraid that we're going to mess it up, we have to do it perfectly. So you have to just simplify, right? I was talking to a soccer coach, a collegiate soccer coach here in the area, and he and I are talking. Some of you know this, some of you don't. I was a coach for 14 years, had a modicum of success at it, struggled some years, actually won 2 state championships, had a good time doing it. And we were talking about how I hate when goalies punt the ball. I hate it. I've always hated it. I've always thought it was a waste of energy, waste of resources. There's a very specific time when the goalie should punt the ball, and that's if we can turn the field quickly. But if you track punted balls and who maintains possession of the ball off of a punt, often it's the other team, even at like the highest level, World Cup. In fact, you won't see a goalie punt a ball all that regularly at World Cup level. And this coach was like, wow, you were ahead of your time, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's how we're teaching it now, da, 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 which is awesome. It's cool. Nice to be validated and all that. But here's the thing. It's not like I'm a genius. I just knew as a coach my goal was to win. If my goal was to win, I needed to score more goals than the other team. If my goal was to score more goals than the other team, I knew that possessing the ball for more minutes than the other team gave me the best chance to do that. And that's kind of how I approach all of life. How do I define a win in this situation? What is the thing that gives me the best chance to do whatever I need to do to find that win, to achieve that win? And then what is the thing that gives me the best chance to do that thing? So what I'm saying is this: how do you define a win as a parent? And then after you have defined your win, what gives you the best chance of achieving that win? So for me, how I've defined a win is I continue to maintain influence with my kids. Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I want to come in here just for a second and interrupt, and I want to tell you 2 things. One, we just signed a contract to do another Fight Club men's conference in Nebraska next year. This one's going to be bigger than last year's. It's going to have more people involved. We're excited about it. Make sure you're paying attention. Stay tuned for that. If you can find me on joemartino.com, you can sign up for Emotionally Inclined. which is my blog. It is right there on my website, but you can sign up for it through Substack, and you'll get it right to your email. All the announcements there. Of course, I'll mention it here on the show. Also, if you're interested, if you live local, we do have a men's group that meets Saturday mornings. It'll be starting this Saturday, October 12th, at my office in Lowell, 11630 East Fulton Street, right across from Goodwill. There is no charge for this. It is a faith-based group, so you need to know that coming in. But we'd love to have you there. We'd love to talk about all the things that make dads dads, and how we're doing as husbands and dads and lovers and friends and as men. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about that. Thanks so much. Let's get on with the show. Now, here's why I think that's a better goal than a lot of other goals. And there are other goals that I have, right? There are other wins. I want my kids to grow up to be contributing adults. I want them to be adults that impact society in a positive way, right? We want to raise our kids to be good people. But those are ancillary to the importance of having the relationship with the kid. Because if the child and I don't have a relationship, I have zero influence for those outcomes. So the win is all of those things, but the thing that gives me the best chance to do that is maintaining the relationship. And maintaining the relationship happens by constantly building it. And so with these dads that I'm talking to, I'm like, your 13-year-old is coming to you with questions about what he does with girls. You're winning. This other dad, your 10-year-old is asking you questions about things he saw at school. You're winning. This one mom that I was talking to, your 14-year-old daughter is asking you about how she navigates relationships at school. You're winning. Yeah, but Joe, even though they talk to me about that stuff, when they talk to me about other stuff, like they're just kind of like these feral cats. Yep, I get it. Raising kids is really hard, and they do things that don't make sense. It's partly because they're not able to regulate their behaviors very well with their emotions yet. They're developing that. That's something you're helping them with. And as you navigate that, it gets more difficult. I get that. Right? But you have to look at the whole picture. You probably know what you're doing. Treat them the way you would have want to have been treated at that age. Right? And I was doing this at a parenting conference one time, and somebody said to me, well, when I was a kid, I wanted to get away with whatever I wanted. Well, yeah, no duh. We're not talking about those types of behaviors, right? Now, there is a question. What happens if my kid isn't talking to me? What happens if I don't feel like I have the relationship? And that has to start with, how realistic is your feeling? Is it just because your kid's being a teenager or they're being a preteen or whatever age they are, and there's a lot of ups and downs to that? Or is there real data there to say, maybe you're not actually building the relationship and there are some things that you can do? That's where we have to start. How realistic is my feeling? If we decide that it's not accurate, then we just keep doing what we're doing. We just keep leaning into the relationship. We keep inviting them into relationship. If we decide that, yeah, you know what, it actually isn't quite the relationship it could be, and there are parts of that I own, we have to navigate those parts. And this is where conversations can get a little frosty with people, because I'll often say to them, it's your responsibility to build your relationship with your kid. It's not your kid's responsibility to build their relationship with you, because you're the adult. You're the grown person. Now, how do we do that? Well, I just give them whatever they want? No, of course not. Although when my son was listening to me record this, he did suggest that was great advice, that we should give our boys everything they want, including a house of his own to be able to sleep in when we have guests. I was like, wow, that is really specific. But how do we build a relationship? We make sure we're making positive deposits from the kid's point of view. So here's the thing. If your kid's playing sports because you're making them, I'm not here to argue that today, but that's not necessarily a positive deposit from their point of view. Or if they're playing sports because they want to, but they don't get to interact with you for whatever reason. Maybe you have a job that doesn't allow you to interact that way. Maybe it's just reality that unless you're the coach, you're not going to get to interact with them that much except before and after the game. And maybe that's a great social opportunity for you. Wonderful. But you have to figure out, where do I find time to make deposits into their life that are positive from their point of view? Well, I pay the bills. I make sure they have a roof over their head. We have cable TV when we have food. Yep, all of that is good. And none of it actually is on their radar until they're much, much older. Well, it's the devices. They don't want to have a relationship with me because of the devices. Stop. Just stop that. It's not the devices. I have people who sit in my room and rant and rave about the devices at their house and how they want to have a relationship with their kids. Then go build it. But the device is in the way. Then invite your kids into a conversation that is more interesting than the device. And you know what? People get mad at me for this, and I get it because, it must be nice. I've actually had somebody say this to me. It must be nice to be so perfect. I am far from perfect. I do more things wrong before I leave the house probably than many people. I get it. But the idea that we can blame something external, and that's the reason we don't have a relationship with our kids, that is scientifically broken. And if you're a Christian, it's unbiblical. It's silly. Well, do your kids have devices? Yeah. And you know what? I have a relationship with them because I make sure I make deposits. I don't want to play video games with them. Okay. Everything you want in life. If you want to know what you're doing, if you want to raise a relationship with your kids, pay, risk, I'm willing to pay playing a video game with my kids. I'm willing to risk wasting 30 minutes of my life in a video game if it builds relationship with my kids. I just am. Well, good for you. Yeah, I guess. But it could be good for you too, my friend. That's the point. If your relationship with your kid isn't what you think it should be, I want to ask you 2 questions. How many deposits are you making regularly, and how many battles are you fighting that you don't need to fight? Your kids are like every other human being. They want to be pursued. They want to be chased. And dads, I'm telling you something right now. How you chase your kids helps set them up for how they pursue life. It helps sets them up for friendships. It helps sets them up for romantic relationships. Moms, how you pursue your kids does the same thing. How you pursue each other certainly sets a standard for your kids, no doubt. But how you pursue them is so important. When you start pursuing your kid and you start making positive deposits, the reality is they're still going to resist you, especially if it's already in trouble. But don't fight battles that you don't have to fight. Don't fight conflicts that you don't have to fight with them. Don't fight battles that don't get you anywhere that you want to go in the relationship. Because there will be plenty of battles that you have to fight. There will be plenty of battles that you won't be able to not fight. No, you can't do this. Yes, you have to do this. So make sure you're using wisdom. If they're talking to you about something, engage the conversation, even if you think it's dumb, especially when they're little. If you like my 12-year-old, I love him to death. He'll talk to me about stuff that realistically I don't necessarily have an opinion on. Dad, what's your favorite World War II plane? The Corsair, because of Black Sheep Squadron TV show I used to watch with my grandma. That's literally the answer. And it's okay. Now, sometimes he asks me those questions, and I'm in the middle of thinking something. This morning, I was working on trying to get a battery out of a package. And the little C32 batteries, they really are afraid people are going to steal them. And so I've got a knife in there, and he's standing here talking to me, and I'm like, bro, I don't want to cut my hand. Can I focus on this? But by and large, when he asks me questions, I try to engage him. If I don't have an answer, I say, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. And I give him an answer. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's been doing this since he was 6. It doesn't matter, or 7. It doesn't matter until he's older. Let's have the conversation, because when you do that with your younger kids, as they become older kids, it's a habit. It's something that you continue to do. So as you chase the relationship and you pursue them, you're building up their heart. And you can do it. I really believe that literally every person who's listening to this can do it. It's actually relatively simple, incredibly difficult. And I think that's why we give up, because we think that hard is wrong. But hard isn't actually wrong. It's just hard. It's just difficult. And so what we want to do is we want to chase down our kids. Literally. What happened today at school? What built you up today? What were you excited about? What did you fail at? I love to ask my kids, what did you do that didn't work? What are our family values? Like what is loyalty? What is honor? What is hard work? Just have those conversations on the regular. Normalize. Here's the thing. I believe you can do this. Normalize conversing with your kids. By the way, friends, it's not conversating. Conversing with your kids about everything. Make everything a conversation. It's so important. Literally, you can talk about everything. Because like my one daughter's boyfriend, they had kissed. And he came over for supper and I said, so-and-so, have you kissed my daughter? And he got all red and said no. And I'm like, dude, you just lost points because I already know the answer because we talk about everything in this house. Nothing's out of bounds. And then he got all red and he's like, well, you could have told me to her. Bro, you could have just told the truth. Right? Like, just tell the truth. Normalize conversations. Because here's the thing. When you fight battles that you don't fight, there's a relational cost. That you don't have to fight, there's a relational cost. When you don't normalize conversations about everything, things are going to come up and they're going to be like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk to my dad about that. I don't know if I want to talk to my mom about that. And now the line's broken. You've lost influence. And keeping that line intact is the thing that gives you the best opportunity to win, which is to raise adults that are productive adults, that love their spouses, that love their kids, that make an impact on society. All right. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share with a friend. And hey, give us that rating in your podcast store. Until next time, change possible.